When it comes to the LNU, the SCU, and the CZU lightning complex wildfires, there have been some big updates, and especially in regards to that lightning threat. So in this video, we're going to talk about that, as well as all the most recent numbers associated with these fires. First thing I want to talk about is that lightning threat. And this was really the major area of concern yesterday. And once this animation starts over, you can actually see these storms move through really the CZU complex, the SCU complex here, and then work their way into the LNU complex later in the day. Overall though, the majority of the action was in the Central Valley in the Sierras. So when it comes to this lightning threat yesterday, I would say we really dodged a bullet here. And if you actually look at the numbers, there was 2 confirmed lightning strikes in the SCU area, but as you can see, majority of it was actually up in the Sierras. So the storm ended up moving farther east than we were originally expecting, and that really helped us, especially with regards to fire behavior. Now, with that being said, there is still a red flag warning in the area until today at 5 p.m. So we're not completely out of danger yet, but it's looking a lot better than the situation was yesterday. So what this red flag warning means, typically, I don't like to, create unnecessary fear in these forecasts, but I will just report what a CAL FIRE representative said. He said a red flag warning is basically California's version of a tornado warning. And the reason for that is it's terrible for fire behavior. This typically means there's warm temperatures, there's gusty winds, and low relative humidity. With that being said, I would say the situation looked much worse yesterday, and if we could just get through the next 6 or 8 hours, the next few days are actually looking pretty good. And especially for the CZU and the SCU complex wildfires, in the North Bay, there is still a little bit of a threat for that dry lightning. But we'll really dive into that later in the video. For most of this area though, I think the key area is the gusty winds that we still could be getting as the final remnants of this storm system move through. Again, that's bad because if it's windy, that can lead to some erratic fire behavior, and it can also actually pick up burning embers, toss them elsewhere, and then start new fires. So the first fire I want to talk about is the LNU lightning complex. And we'll zoom in on this west zone first. The key area that we're looking at here is the eastern edge of this fire as it nears closer to Healdsburg and Windsor. But there is some good news here. CAL FIRE was saying that they have just a ton of lines around the southern edge and the eastern edge of this fire. And they're actively trying to connect those lines to create a perimeter to protect these cities. Now, when it comes to these maps, where you see these red spots, that's where the satellite is picking up heat signatures. So something to notice in this eastern zone is how hot the fire still is in the northwest corner here. This is really the main area of concern when it comes to the eastern zone of the LNU lightning complex. This fire, as it moves into Lake County, this is really creating some tricky conditions for firefighters. You can see how hot the blaze is still burning, and unfortunately in this area, again, we still have that red flag warning, possibility of some dry lightning, although I don't think the possibility is all that great, but it could have some gusty winds, so this is really going to be the area I'm going to be watching for the next 24 hours. We do have some good news though. You can see if those red dots there mean that fire is burning hot, you can see the southern edge of this fire is looking pretty good. There are basically no more hotspots on the southern edge of this fire, and if you're a resident of Vacaville or Fairfield, that is great news. And then when it comes to this eastern edge, you can see there are still some hotspots, but CAL FIRE has actively been fighting fire with fire in this area. They've been taking care of some of the favorable nighttime conditions and actually burning out some of the vegetation here. So even if this fire keeps expanding, there's going to be no more fuel to further encourage fire growth. So that's some good news when it comes to the LNU complex. Again, when it comes to this eastern side and southern side, don't take my word for it. Check the CAL FIRE website for the most recent evacuation notices. So let's look at some of the numbers that happened in the last day associated with the LNU lightning complex. We are now up to 350,000 acres. Again, that is the second largest wildfire in the history of California. While that's some bad news, we do have some good news. The containment is up to 22%. That's the highest we've seen it. And I will note they were able to gain some containment yesterday when we had those thunderstorms coming through with the gusty winds. So I'm hoping this number just continues to rise. Again, when it comes to evacuations, CAL FIRE always says, please evacuate if your area is on this list, as it really helps them do their job. So looking down at the damages and losses, this number grew yesterday. We are now up to 871 structures destroyed. We have 4 injuries and 4 fatalities. When it comes to cooperators and personnel, this is where some of the good news comes in. You can see this number's up where we now have over 1,800 personnel on this, 15 crews, 12 helicopters, 259 engines, 36 dozers, and 35 water tenders. Now, when it comes to resources, there is some great news coming in about really all 3 of the main fires in the Bay Area. There is help coming down from Oregon, from Washington, even a couple of different countries, and these fires have been officially declared a state of emergency, which means some federal aid will start coming into these fires as well. So I believe in the next day or two, these numbers are just going to continue to rise. Now, when it comes to the forecast for Clear Lake, we are looking at the Lake County forecast for today because that's really the major area of concern associated with the LNU complex as of right now. Again, that red flag warning is in effect until 11 p.m. Monday. You'll notice that's a little bit later for this region than the southern locations, and that's because these storms are moving south to north. So if we actually dive into it, I would say compared with the 3 other fires, the forecast for this area is looking kind of the most treacherous. We have pretty high temperatures, 98 degrees, 97 over the next 2 days. It's not the triple digits we saw at the beginning of this really fire period, but that's still a lot higher than you'd like to see it. When it comes to humidity, that's some bad news as well. You can see we're dropping into the teens today and then the low 20s tomorrow. Again, when it comes to humidity, the reason that really matters is when the air is dry, it dries out the vegetation. And if you've ever tried to start a campfire with a wet log versus a dry log, I think it makes sense which one is a lot easier to burn and which one burns hotter. Now, don't get too excited about this rain right here. There is a chance of some sprinkles throughout the day today, but I don't really think we could count on this for really any fire suppression. Again, the main area of concern though is this thunder as it sticks around until about 5 a.m. You can see the major area of concern is in the hours right now and really till 11 a.m. So once that's gone, it looks as if a lot of the storms are going to be moving farther into NorCal. So that's great news when it comes to the whole dry lightning threat in this area. Now, the next fire I want to look at is the SCU lightning complex. There were some big updates with this one yesterday. And really the main thing I'm worried about with this one is just how hot it's burning. Compared to the other 2 fires, this is definitely the one with the most hot spots, especially on the southern edge, right in the middle where these 2 fires combined, and then in the northern portions as well. The good news is this western edge is looking pretty mild when compared with these other areas. You can see there is a hot spot right here, but I do know CAL FIRE is working extremely hard to get some good dozer lines all along this western edge to really protect these more populated areas. Now, when it comes to the numbers for the SCU lightning complex, we're now up to 347,000 acres, making it the 3rd largest wildfire in the history of California. It is now 10% contained, and I believe a lot of the reason for that low containment number is mostly on the southern edge as it just continues to burn farther and farther into Henry Coast State Park. So going back to the numbers, third largest wildfire of all time, 10% contained. Again, evacuations, you could check the CAL FIRE website. We're now up to 12 structures destroyed. There have been 5 injuries. That number's up, 1,300 personnel, 23 crews. We got 5 helicopters, 152 engines, 30 dozers, and 42 water tenders. And like I said, more and more resources are coming in every single day, so that is some great news with regards to personnel and equipment. So looking at the forecast for Santa Clara, you can see we do have the red flag warning, and it's in effect until 5 p.m. Monday. So it's ending a little bit earlier than those northern locations, again, because these storms are moving south to north. If we actually dive into the forecast, this is looking pretty good, I'd say. We're in the mid to high 80s for today and tomorrow. Not nearly what it was at the beginning of last week, so that's some good news there. The main concern is obviously right now and then into maybe 12 p.m. today. That's where we still have this thunder threat. Again, I don't think there's any more threat for dry lightning in this area, but we could still see some gusty winds. So that's one thing to think about when you see these winds. You say, oh, it's under 10 miles per hour. That's great news. There is still a threat of some of those 30 to 45 mile per hour gusts coming in with that thunder threat. Now, you might see that rain there and get excited, but again, there's not really enough moisture to really create enough rainfall to really suppress these fires. The good news though, humidity is way up. You can see the low today is around 43%. Tomorrow is going to be 50%. That's some great news. So really that Hurricane Genevieve that created all that moisture, that created the thunderstorm threat, now that moisture is kind of working in our favor as the humidity is rising, and it's going to make fire behavior a lot more friendly for firefighters to try to suppress. So looking at the next fire, we're going to move over to the CZU Lightning Complex. And honestly, this is the fire that I'm feeling best about right now. You can see there really aren't that many hotspots. There are a couple in the Ben Lomond area working into Scotts Valley, but firefighters have done an amazing job of really securing this perimeter. There's a line around this eastern edge that's pretty strong, protecting these communities, and they not only have one line on the southern edge, they actually dug a second as well to protect Santa Cruz and UC Santa Cruz. So that's some great news when it comes to fire suppression. There's also some great news when it comes to the forecast for this area. You can see temperatures are still pretty high, 89, 88, 88, and we do still have that red flag warning till 5 p.m. But I would say of the 3 fires, this forecast is looking the best. The reason for that, obviously the temperatures are similar to the SCU, but you can see these winds are really below 5 miles per hour. And while that might not be true for the start of this period when there could be some thunderstorms bringing in some gusts, if that holds true for the next 3 days, that is terrific news, and firefighters will likely be able to gain some containment. The other good news is with regards to humidity. You can see it's around 50% for really the daytime lows. That's great news there. Again, that Hurricane Genevieve, the moisture from that storm is now actually working in our favor instead of creating thunderstorms. The other good news with this one is I've been talking about how in the overnight hours, the higher elevations have actually been seeing a decrease in relative humidity. That's led to some pretty tricky fire behavior in the higher elevations as relative humidity has been dropping into sometimes the single digits over the nighttime hours. Well, tonight, that trend is over. Tonight, in the lower elevations, we could be seeing 90 to 100% relative humidity. In the upper elevations, we could be seeing 60 to 80%. So that, mixed with the low winds, mixed with the low temperatures, is really going to help out firefighters really get a handle on this blaze over the next day or two. So just backing up here, getting a wide view of all 3 of these fires, you can see there is still some danger, especially when it comes to Lake County up here and some of these hot spots on the SCU. Overall though, I'd say things are looking up, and especially once that dry lightning threat and the thunderstorm threat is completely out of the area, I think things are going to be looking up over the next day or two. Now, as always, I appreciate the comments below. If you are in this northern area and you did see some lightning yesterday, I'd love if you'd let me know, because I couldn't actually find any confirmed reports, even though there were a couple of videos that were showing some lightning. So let me know in the comments. And again, if you or your friends or family have been affected by these wildfires in any way, my thoughts and prayers go out to you, and thanks for watching.